I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm not so sure what to think of Sweden result this year, of Felicia result. When Melodifestivalen ended, I was so confident that she was gonna top 10, top 5, maybe even a chance to win. But then the more that it progressed, March, April, nobody was talking about her. She was losing a lot of momentum. And I kind of had a feeling that it was heading that way. I don't know why. I know that EDM never do well on Eurovision. He's going to explain ESC Blue is theory. I have also theory. Let's see what he think. I think that the title is a little bit dramatic. Swedish Eurovision need to change. I mean, they got 4th place last year. And Lorraine won recently. So I'm not sure that it need to change. But let's see. Let's get started.
So it finally happened. Sweden finished outside the top 15 for the first time since 2010, and in fact even failed to qualify with the televote for the first time since 2008. As you can imagine, there's been a bit of a minor meltdown in Swedish media because of this, and while I don't have a lot to say about the result itself, I do have a lot to say about our national selection and the way it was run this year, because the time after the contest has revealed some pretty interesting details. And I'd like to start off by introducing you to what I think is the stupidest rule change of the decade. So in August last year, it was announced that SVT would be using a new system to select the entries for this year's competition. Previously, the responsibility had been shared by a musical jury who selected half of the competing entries, whereas the show's producer selected the other half. This year, however, that system would be scrapped in favor of a 4-person committee that would select all competing entries. Who were on this committee, you may ask? Well, the first person is the producer from before, basically the woman who has contact with all their record labels and so on. Fair enough. The second one is a staging expert. Okay, I'm not sure we should be selecting songs based on how good of a dance break they can form, but she's also the head of the Swedish delegation, so I suppose it makes sense. The third person, however, is the show's screenwriter, as in the guy who plans the interval acts, writes jokes for the hosts, and makes room for those stupid sketches we get every year. Now, I have no doubt he's a competent screenwriter, but why on earth should he have a say in what songs actually get selected for the competition? However, nothing leaves me scratching my head more than the 4th and final person they decided to put on this committee. Because get this, that guy is a voting statistics expert. What? Are we selecting songs based on what will cause people to vote the most? As in purposely selecting some rage bait entries just to bring the numbers up? I mean, if you're gonna do rage bait, at least invite this guy for some proper lyrics.
I don't know if he's gonna talk about it, but I think one of my biggest issues this year, it's not that Felicia won, because I think that she was maybe the biggest surprise of the whole season, right? My biggest concern is that there was so many comeback act. Like there was Grez Kula, there was Smash Into Pieces, there was Medina, Senna Nilsson. There's too many repeat that we have seen, especially recently. And I feel like there wasn't a lot of creativity. Most of the new act that they bring, they are people that don't have a lot of staging experience. So there was a lot of act that didn't make it through to the final that kind of had potential, but they were just too green, too not ready. I feel like the balance that they try to create every year between the new entry and the people that have been there before, it's not right. Some of them are just there to fill a spot, to please people, to have new act, to have act that we've seen before, and plus the older act that never do well. And I feel like it's not a great balance. That's why an act like Felicia that came from nowhere, it kind of makes sense for her to win. But most of the act either were not ready or were just there to fill a spot. So.
Jokes aside, having people with questionable qualifications isn't necessarily the worst part about this system, because it still would have probably been fine if each person selected 7 or 8 songs each based on their areas of expertise. But that's not what happened, because SVT decided that the committee had to unanimously agree on each of the 30 songs selected. Basically,
Yeah, Jacqueline, Miramar, we just saw there's so many acts that have been there recently. I feel like it killed the surprise, I would say. Because I feel like Grescula, if it was his first year this year, he probably would have won. But the fact that it was there just last year, it gave him like a little bit less of an edge. And I don't feel like this is the way that you should be voting for people, you know?
A veto system, because that always works well in heterogeneous groups. And it turns out that forcing the average opinion of three people with vastly different backgrounds makes the outcome pretty average. Because that's what the final was this year. It wasn't bad, the songs had major chart success, but it was
Peralto, him that was there a while ago, Sarah Luke Vincent. Damn, how many repeat that we've seen the last 2 or 3 years was in the final or came back? A lot, and it's way too much. It dilutes the surprise. And Eurovision is supposed to be about having a lot of surprise.
painfully okay. There were hardly any entries you could consider risky or standout, to the point where I doubt Kai from last year would have had any chance of making it in this time. Also, remember how I said there used to be a jury of music experts selecting half of the competing entries? Well, they were actually around this year too, but only as an advisory function. And their purpose, according to SVT, was to help the committee make more data-driven decisions. I'm honestly not sure what they mean by that, but I never want to hear the term data-driven when talking about songs for our biggest music competition ever again. Unfortunately for me though, reality sometimes hits you in the face when you least expect it. So yeah, another big headline in Swedish media over the last few days has been about the fact that apparently 2 songs in the final this year were at least partially AI generated. Now, according to the producer behind these songs, the AI was mainly used to brainstorm some ideas for the production and arrangement, but it still leaves an interesting discussion on to what extent AI, if any, should be allowed at all in these competitions. What is pretty concerning right now is that SVT apparently has no framework in place regulating AI generated music whatsoever. So theoretically we could have songs that are fully AI slop in the competition in the future, if we haven't had them already.
Yep.
So to wrap this quick rant up, I just like to address my thoughts on the result this year, and personally, I actually don't have a strong opinion on it. I think my system...
To be fair, this guy, I saw his other video and he had Sweden, I think 9 or 10 place. I think it's a combination of, to me, why she didn't do well. It's a combination of EDM never doing well at Eurovision. That's a fact. EDM have never done well. And since the Melodifestivalen performance, there's been no improvement in her performance. It's the exact same thing that she did in the final of Eurovision. And while on Melodifestivalen, she was the only one with that big wild music and staging, on Eurovision, she had to compete with people that have had equally as good staging, a lot of loud music, like Croatia, for example. So she had to compete with this. And also the fact that she's wearing a mask, we cannot connect with her personality. While on Melodifestivalen, it was all about the story or her background, right? With the other label that she went through with her band. The fall off and everything, there was a storytelling there, but nobody watching Eurovision really care about her personally. They care about what they feel on stage and stuff like this. People don't care about the lyrics either. They just care about what the song make them feel. I'm sure that 90% of people watching have no idea what Bangaranga is about. They have no idea the concept behind the chair, the alcoholic anonymous, that all the character there was in her own head. They have no idea what Dara was doing with this song. Nobody care. They just vibe to the song. Italy, they never sing a song for Eurovision. They just send a lot of good singer at their song contest, and people at Eurovision end up liking it because it feel completely authentic when Italy perform. And I think that's what a little bit lacking with Sweden. A lot of the time, like Marcus and Martinez, to me it was the same problem. It didn't feel authentic. It felt really, really forced. They are trying too much. I don't know how to explain it. Just try less.
was ironically the riskiest and best entry we could have selected in a plain playing field. This time that risk didn't pay off as much as we'd hoped, but the important thing is that we made the final and got to display a part of the Scandinavian music scene that hasn't been represented that much in Eurovision before. Felicia herself couldn't have done anything better, and she should be very proud indeed. That being said, there are some things that need to change if we don't want to be looking at another NQ in the near future. You should totally check out my video on Sweden's first NQ, by the way. First off, that committee I talked about is inherently unproductive and needs to go. Secondly, there needs to be more emphasis on diversity among the songs selected. We can't rely solely on good staging and slick productions because basically everyone has that nowadays.
Yeah.
We need
That's what I just said. Is that her staging was unique for Melodifestivalen, but it became completely normal for Eurovision, and there was too much dependency on the staging. And while it worked on Melodifestivalen, on Eurovision, everyone has that. It doesn't work anymore. So there needs to be more. The song was too dark. It was too much emphasis on the music, and it's exactly. I said it for 2 months, by the way. People didn't believe me. I said it for 2 months. I said it's. There's something that people are not going to connect with, and people did not connect with it at all, actually.
Originality as well. Finally, I suggest reintroducing a public jury to select at least some of the songs for the competition, or if not that, maybe do a San Remo thing where you reserve some slots in the competition for indie or upcoming artists. The playing field needs to be more diverse, and the people we let into the competition should mirror that ambition, even if that means letting this guy in again. Oh yeah, and please ban AI songs like Yesterday. Anyways, that's all I have to say. More videos coming up in the summer. See you in the next one. Until then.
I think a song like Medina would have done a lot better, for example. But do you know what the problem was with Medina? Is that it was the third or fourth time recently that they compete. So people were like, oh, they sing the same song again. But it was very good. And people at Eurovision, they don't know who Medina is. So for them, it's all new. And the song was celebratory. It was very engaging. It would have done better. But anyway, I don't know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment below, yeah.